A single phone call. That's all it took. Not a bomb threat, not a medical emergency, but a 5-minute conversation from Suite 72,145 that vaporized a multi-billion-dollar cruise line and ended the careers of an entire ship crew. It started with a simple, quiet request born from prejudice, a request that would ignite a firestorm of corporate karma so devastating. It is still studied in business schools today. This is not just a story about a bad voyage. It is a story about what happens when you underestimate the wrong people. This is a story of Jordan and Jaden Carter, the black twins who were asked to give up their staterooms, and how they responded by taking over the whole damn game. The exclusive Suite Deck Lounge of Neptune. Luxury Cruises' flagship terminal at Port of Miami was a carefully curated bubble of tranquility. Soft jazz piano notes mingled with the gentle clinking of porcelain and the low, confident murmur of people who measured their lives not in days, but in deals closed and oceans crossed. For Jordan and Jaden Carter, 32-year-old identical twins, this was just another Tuesday dot to the casual observer. They were striking, dressed in bespoke bright blue suits that were subtly different in their cut. Jordan's with a sharper, more aggressive lapel, Jaden's with a softer, more classic line. They were a mirror image of control power. Jordan, the elder by 7 minutes, had an energy that seemed to crackle just beneath the surface. He was the front man, the orator, the one who could walk into a boardroom of skeptics and leave with believers. Jaden was his anchor. His calm was a deep ocean. He saw angles others missed. His mind a silent, relentless processor of strategy and consequence together. They were the founders and co-chief executive officers of SAPS Dynamics, a revolutionary artificial intelligence logistics firm that had in 6 short years gone from a Silicon Valley garage startup to a titan of industry. Their proprietary algorithm, Pathfinder, could predict and reroute global supply chains with terrifying accuracy, saving corporations billions. And now they were on the verge of their magnum opus. Across the water in Miami, Henry Thorne, the legendary chief executive officer of the colossal conglomerate Summit Holdings, was waiting. Summit was in the final stages of acquiring Neptune Luxury Cruises, a legacy cruise line bleeding money and prestige. Summit's plan was to inject new life into Neptune's cargo and supply logistics division. And the beating heart of that plan was the exclusive, multi-billion-dollar integration of SAP's Dynamics Pathfinder artificial intelligence. This voyage for the Carter twins was not just a meeting. It was the coronation of their life's work. The deal, codenamed Project Ascension, would make them not just wealthy, but titans of a new technological era. You think Thorne will wear that ridiculous purple tie again? Jordan murmured, sipping his espresso, a glint of amusement in his eyes. Jaden did not look up from his tablet, where he was reviewing the final contractual clauses. The tie is a power move, Jay. It is loud. It is unexpected. It tells you he does not care about convention. He cares about results. Let us make sure we give him the results. Results are locked, Jordan said, leaning back. We built the engine. They just need to turn the key. He looked around the lounge at the polished wood and brushed steel. Funny, is it not? 5 years ago, we were coding on maxed-out credit cards, eating our men. Now, Neptune is betting its entire future on our code, and they do not even know it yet. Their boarding call was announced, a soft chime cutting through the quiet. Neptune Luxury Cruises' grand voyage to the Caribbean is now ready for Suite Deck guest embarkation. At Gangway C-26, the twins gathered their briefcases. They were in staterooms 72,145 and 72,147, the coveted corner balcony suites on the penthouse suite deck. It was a small detail, but on a 7-day Caribbean cruise where they intended to do their final prep, the extra space and privacy were essential. As they walked towards the gangway, they were the embodiment of success, sharp, intelligent, and completely unaware that they were about to step into a microcosm of the very prejudice they had spent their lives systematically dismantling. They believed their success had made them bulletproof. They were about to find out that some bullets are invisible. At the gangway, a frazzled-looking embarkation staff member named Brenda scanned their cruise keycards. Her eyes flicked from their faces to the stateroom numbers, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of something crossed her face. Confusion? Annoyance? It was gone as quickly as it appeared. Enjoy your voyage, gentlemen, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Jordan and Jaden thought nothing of it. It was just another gate, another ship, another step towards the pinnacle. The interior of Neptune's Grand Voyage ship was a cathedral of beige leather and muted lighting. The penthouse suites offered privacy and luxury. Jordan took the corner balcony suite 72,145, while Jaden settled into the adjoining suite 72,147. They stowed their carry-ons, the familiar ritual of frequent cruisers. The pre-departure champagne arrived, bubbly and cold. The quiet hum of the auxiliary power unit was a comforting sound, the prelude to a journey that would change our lives. 10 minutes before the ship door was due to close, the problem arrived. It came in the form of a man in his late 50s with a florid face and a sense of entitlement that seemed to take up more space than his expensive, slightly too tight suit. He clutched a key card for stateroom 83,012 on a lower, standard deck. He paused, looking at the twins, then at the empty pair of suites across the deck, 71,001 and 71,003. Then he looked back at the twins. He flagged down the head of guest services. Her name tag read Heather Vance. She had the polished, brittle demeanor of someone who had been in her role for 30 years, and believed her authority on the passenger decks was absolute. "Excuse me," the man, whose name was Robert Sterling, said in a voice accustomed to being obeyed. "I am a Diamond Elite Cruiser Million Miler. My wife is over there in 83,014. I was assured by the embarkation staff that arrangements would be made so we could be stowed together." Heather Vance's professional smile was a mask of practiced empathy. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Let me see what I can do." Her eyes scanned the deck. They bypassed the empty suites across the deck from the twins. Her gaze landed with pointed intention on Jordan and Jaden. She glided over to their staterooms, her smile tightening just a fraction. "What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video, gentlemen." "I am so sorry to bother you," she began, her voice a conspiratorial whisper that was anything but. "We have a very high-value passenger, a million-miler with us today. Mr. Sterling, his wife is just behind you, and we were wondering if you would be so kind as to switch staterooms with him, so he can be with her." She gestured vaguely towards staterooms 94,001 and 94,003, to decks back. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "You want both of us to move so he can be with his wife?" He glanced over. Mr. Sterling's wife was in 83,014. Her husband was ticketed for 83,012. Moving the twins to deck 9 would do absolutely nothing to put the couple together. The logic was so flawed it was insulting. Jaden, ever the strategist, saw the play instantly. This was not about putting a couple together. He looked at Mr. Sterling, who was now staring at them with undisguised impatience. He then looked at the empty staterooms, 71,001 and 71,003. "A perfect pair in the center, ma'am," Jaden said, his voice level and calm. "There is an empty pair of staterooms right there." He pointed. "Staterooms 71,001 and 71,003. They are together. Why do you not offer those to Mr. Sterling and his wife?" Heather's smile faltered. This was not the expected response. "Oh?" she stammered, caught off guard. "Well, those are reserved for crew rest on certain voyages. And besides, Mr. Sterling specifically requested a balcony suite." Jordan leaned forward slightly. "I am in a balcony suite, 72,145. My brother is in the adjoining suite, 72,147. His wife is in 83,014. So you want me to move from my balcony suite to another balcony suite on deck 9, and my brother to move from his suite to another suite? For what reason exactly?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Heather's composure began to fray. The simple, polite deference she expected was absent. "Sir, we are just trying to accommodate a premier passenger. It is a simple request. We would be happy to offer you a complimentary bottle of champagne for your trouble." "We already have champagne," Jordan said, gesturing to their full glasses. He was not trying to be difficult. He was trying to understand the baffling, illogical, and increasingly insulting nature of the request. It was clear they were being singled out. They were the two large black men in the front of the suite deck. To Heather and Mr. Sterling, they were the movable pieces, the ones who should be grateful to be there at all. "The issue," Jaden added, his voice still dangerously calm, is that you are asking us to solve a problem that either does not exist or has a much simpler solution. If Mr. Sterling wants to be closer to his wife, he can ask the passenger in stateroom 83,016 to switch with him, or they can use the empty staterooms you mentioned. Asking us specifically to move to decks back for no logical reason feels particular. The word particular was a perfectly chosen dart. It did not scream racism, but it bled the accusation. Heather Vance's face flushed a blotchy red. Her professional veneer cracked, revealing a bedrock of indignation. Sir, I am the head of guest services on the ship. I need to balance the needs of all my passengers. Now, are you going to move or not? The request was no longer a request. It was an order, and it was the first critical mistake in a chain of errors that would bring an empire to its knees. The quiet luxury of the suite deck was now thick with tension. Other passengers were starting to notice, their heads subtly turning. Dopmer Sterling, seeing his request being denied, decided to intervene personally. He strode over, his face a mask of condescending disbelief. Is there a problem here? He asked, directing the question not to the twins, but to Heather, as if the Carters were unruly children. I was told this would be handled. We are just resolving it now. Mr. Sterling, Heather said, her voice regaining a sliver of its earlier authority. Now bolstered by her high-value passenger. Jordan turned his full attention to Sterling. The problem, sir, is that we paid for these specific staterooms. We chose them for a reason, and we are being asked to move for a reason that makes no logical sense. Perhaps you could explain it, Sterling scoffed, a wet, dismissive sound. Look, son, some of us have been cruising with this line since before you were born. There is a pecking order. Loyalty is rewarded. It is a simple swap. Do not make a federal case out of it. The word son landed like a spark on dry tinder. Jordan's jaw tightened. All the years of having to be twice as good, twice as smart, twice as composed, boiled in his veins. But Jaden placed a hand on his brother's arm. A silent, powerful gesture. Not here, not like this. We play our game, not theirs. Jaden spoke, his voice cutting through the tension with icy precision. With all due respect, Mr. Sterling, our loyalty is to the contract we entered into when we purchased these tickets. For several $1,000s, just like yours is. Now, we have already pointed out several viable solutions that do not involve us relocating. Since those have been ignored, our answer is no. We will be remaining in our assigned staterooms. This final, unequivocal refusal was a declaration of war. Heather Vance saw it as a direct challenge to her authority in her domain. Mr. Sterling saw it as an affront to his status. Their shared indignation bonded them in a foolish alliance, right? Heather snapped, her professionalism now completely gone. I am going to have to involve the captain. She stormed off towards the ship's bridge. Leaving a stunned silence in her wake, Mr. Sterling stood there, sputtering before retreating to his original stateroom. Fuming. Jordan let out a slow, controlled breath. Pecking order? He muttered to Jaden. Can you believe the nerve? I can, Jaden replied quietly, his eyes dark. But they do not understand the game they are playing. They think this is about passenger hierarchy. They have no idea what the real pecking order is. He pulled out his phone. Let us give them every chance to descale it. Document everything. He discreetly started a voice recording. A few minutes later, Heather returned, flanked by Captain Miller, a man in his late 50s with a neatly trimmed gray mustache and an air of weary command. He did not look pleased to be summoned from his pre-departure checks. He stopped at their stateroom door, his arms crossed. He did not make eye contact. He addressed a point somewhere in the middle distance between them. Gentlemen, I am Captain Miller. I understand there is some reluctance to cooperate with my crew. Captain, Jaden said respectfully. We were asked to move from our pre-selected, paid-for staterooms to a different deck for a reason that was demonstrably false. When we pointed out the logical inconsistencies, your head of guest services became hostile. Heather, the captain said, turning to her, what is the issue? I was told it was a stability and trim problem, a new lie. A more serious one. Jordan almost laughed. Stability and trim? Are you serious? You are telling us that the two of us in staterooms 7 to 1 for 5 and 70 to 1,147 are disrupting the delicate stability and trim of a massive cruise ship? That is, with all due respect, Captain, the most absurd excuse I have ever heard. Captain Miller's face hardened. He was being challenged on his own vessel. and he did not like it. He was used to his word being law. The technicalities did not matter. Compliance did. I did not have time to debate maritime engineering with passengers, he said, his voice dropping to a low, threatening growl. My head of guest services has identified an issue that requires a stateroom change. I am now making it a direct order from the captain. You will move to staterooms 94,001 and 94,003, or you will be removed from my vessel for failing to comply with crew instructions. We can have ship security and port authority here in 5 minutes. The choice is yours. It was the ultimate trump card. The threat of being forcibly removed, arrested, and placed on a no-sail list. It was a sledgehammer of authority meant to crush any and all resistance. He looked at them, a smug, final certainty in his eyes. He had no doubt what their choice would be. He had made this threat a dozen times in his career, and it had always worked. Jordan and Jaden looked at each other. The same thought passed between them. They had been pushed, disrespected, lied to, and now threatened. The line had been crossed. The entire system, from the embarkation staff to the head of guest services to the captain, had aligned against them, operating on a shared, unspoken assumption about who they were and how they should behave. Jaden nodded slowly. His face was a placid mask, but his eyes were like chips of flint. He turned to the captain. You are right, Captain, Jaden said, his voice chillingly calm. The choice is ours. He held up his phone. He was not calling a lawyer. He was about to make a call that would bypass every layer of cruise line bureaucracy, every rule in their little playbook, and connect directly to the god in the machine. He looked at Heather Vance's triumphant smirk and Captain Miller's dismissive arrogance. You have given us our choice, Jaden said. Now I am going to make mine. He found the number in his contacts list, saved under the name Henry Thorne. He pressed the call button. The call connected on the second ring. In a Miami boardroom overlooking Biscayne Bay, Henry Thorne, a man who commanded armies of lawyers and analysts, was in the middle of a final briefing on Project Ascension. His phone, a private line few people had access to, was on the polished mahogany table. He saw the name Jaden Carter. He excused himself immediately. A call from Jaden Carter 12 hours before the final handshake could mean only one thing. A problem, Jaden. Thorne's voice was gravelly, direct. Tell me you are calling from the open sea. Not quite, Henry. Jaden's voice was preternaturally calm, the sound of a surgeon describing a critical wound. We are on the vessel, but we are not exactly at sea. We are having a customer service issue on Neptune Luxury Cruises' Grand Voyage ship. Captain Miller and Heather Vance watched, bewildered. Who could these men possibly be calling that would matter? Local police? It was irrelevant. On the vessel, the captain's word was absolute. Heather whispered to the captain, they are bluffing, trying to save face. On the other end of the line, Henry Thorne felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Customer service. Jaden, do not waste my time with lost luggage. What is it? We are being asked to vacate our paid-for penthouse suites, Jaden stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. We were first told it was to accommodate another passenger, a Mr. Sterling. The reasoning provided was illogical. When we refused, your head of guest services, a Miss Heather Vance, became hostile. We have now been given a new reason by the captain. A Mr. Miller. He claims our presence in staterooms 72,145 and 72,147 constitutes a stability and trim issue for the vessel. There was a dead silence from the Miami end. Thorne, a man who had built an empire on calculated risks and ruthless efficiency, understood nuance. He also understood dog whistles. Stability and trim was a farcical excuse, a pretext for something else. And what was the captain's resolution? Thorne asked, his voice now dangerously low. He has given us a direct order, Jaden continued. His eyes locked on Captain Miller. We are to move to inferior staterooms or be forcibly removed from the vessel by ship security and port authority. He paused, letting the words sink in. He could hear Thorne breathing on the other end. Henry, Jaden said, and now a sliver of steel entered his voice. My brother and I are the only two black passengers in the suite deck area. Your ship crew, in front of numerous witnesses, has chosen to single us out, lie to us, and threaten us with arrest for refusing to comply with a discriminatory request. Now you and I are hours away from signing a contract that hinges on synergy, partnership, and mutual respect. This incident, Henry, is a fundamental data point. It speaks to the culture of the asset you are about to acquire. It was a masterstroke. He did not yell. He did not accuse. He presented it as a business problem, a flaw in the product. He was telling Henry Thorne in the coldest possible terms that the company he was about to buy for billions was rotten from the inside out. In Miami, Henry Thorne's face was ashen. The multi-billion-dollar acquisition of Neptune Luxury Cruises was not just a financial transaction. It was his legacy project. The integration of SAP's Dynamics artificial intelligence was the linchpin, the one thing that made the staggering purchase price justifiable to his board. Without the Carter brothers and their technology, Neptune was just a failing cruise line with aging vessels and powerful unions. He was buying a future, and his new expensive toy was at this very moment trying to have them arrested. The rage that filled him was volcanic. "Put the captain on the phone," Thorne commanded. Jaden held the phone out to Captain Miller. "It is for you," he said simply. Captain Miller smirked. "I am not talking to your lawyer, son." "He is not our lawyer," Jaden replied. "His name is Henry Thorne, Chief Executive Officer of Summit Holdings. I believe he is your new boss, or was about to be." The color drained from Captain Miller's face. Heather Vance looked like she had seen a ghost. The name Summit Holdings was on the lips of every employee. It was their savior, their future. The name Henry Thorne was whispered in hushed, reverent tones. Shaking, the captain took the phone. "This is Captain Miller," he said, his voice suddenly weak. He was met with a torrent of controlled fury. Thorne's voice, even through the tiny speaker, was a weapon. "Captain, you have two choices. You can either personally apologize to the Carter brothers, have your entire crew line up to do the same, and then sail this vessel to the Caribbean, where I will personally terminate your employment at the port, or you can proceed with removing them from the vessel, at which point I will not only scuttle the entire acquisition of this cruise line, but I will personally fund their lawsuit against you and every member of your crew, until you are all unemployable in this industry for the rest of your lives. You have 10 seconds to decide." Captain Miller was trembling. He looked at the twins, no longer as troublesome passengers, but as arbiters of his fate. He saw the cold, unwavering certainty in their eyes. He had made a catastrophic miscalculation. "Mr. Thorne," he stammered, "there has been a misunderstanding. Your 10 seconds are up." Thorne snarled. "You just failed. Now hang up the phone and await instructions from the shore. Your career is over." The line went dead. Captain Miller stood frozen, the phone still in his hand. The silence in the suite deck was absolute. Every passenger, every crew member knew they had just witnessed something monumental. The carefully constructed hierarchy of the vessel had been utterly annihilated by a power they could not comprehend. Heather Vance stared at Jaden, her face a mess of confusion and terror. Who are you?" she whispered. Jordan, who had been silent throughout the entire exchange, finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but carried the weight of a final judgment. "We are the guys you asked to move," he said. "And you just cost your company its future." The moments after the call ended were surreal. Captain Miller, pale and shaking, stumbled back towards the ship's bridge, the phone held limply in his hand. Heather Vance looked at the twins, then at the other passengers, her face a canvas of dawning horror. The smugness was gone, replaced by a raw, animal fear. She had not just angered a passenger. She had, in her arrogant ignorance, set fire to her own world. Before anyone could process what had happened, the deck intercom crackled to life. But it was not the captain's voice. It was a crisp, authoritative voice from the shore. "Captain Miller, this is Neptune Operations Command at Port of Miami. Acknowledge." A tense moment passed before Miller's strained voice replied. "Operations Command, this is Miller. Go ahead, Captain, by order of the Chief Executive Officer's office. You are to stand down from command of this vessel, effective immediately. Do not touch the ship's controls. Do not close the ship's door. A replacement crew is en route to the gangway. Await further instructions on the shore. Acknowledge." A collective gasp went through the crew. A captain being relieved of command on his own ship's bridge moments before departure was unheard of. It was the maritime equivalent of a public execution. "Acknowledged," Miller's voice replied. Barely a whisper. The next call was for Heather, Head of Guest Services. "Vance, this is the Vice President of Guest Experience. You and your entire crew for the Grand Voyage ship are to disembark immediately. Leave all company property on the vessel. Your employee credentials have been deactivated. You are to report to the Human Resources Office in Terminal 4, where you will be met by security. Do not speak to any other employees. Heather swayed on her feet, grabbing a railing for support. Her crew, who had stood by and supported her, looked at her with a mixture of betrayal and panic. Their careers, which an hour ago had seemed so secure, had just evaporated. Now all eyes were on the Carter twins. They sat calmly in their staterooms, the architects of this silent, swift corporate coup. The groveling began almost immediately. Heather, tears streaming down her face, approached them. "Sir, Mr. Carters, please, I am so sorry. It was a misunderstanding. I was just trying. I did not know." Jordan held up a hand, stopping her. His face was cold and passive. "You did not know what? You did not know we were important, is that it? So, the disrespect, the lies, the threats. That is just standard procedure for your regular black passengers, the ones who cannot call your future owner. Your apology is rejected. It is not for the offense. It is for the consequence." His words hit her harder than any physical blow. He had laid bare the truth of her actions. Her apology was not born of remorse. It was born of fear. The replacement captain and crew arrived, their faces grim and professional. They knew they were walking into a disaster zone. The new head of guest services, a woman named Annette, approached the twins with profound deference. Mr. Carter, she said softly. "I am Annette, your new head of guest services. We are so deeply sorry for the inexcusable behavior of the previous crew. The vessel is yours. Please let us know if there is anything at all we can do to make you comfortable." Jaden looked at Jordan. The thought of continuing the voyage, of sitting in those staterooms for 7 days surrounded by the ghost of the confrontation, felt wrong. The purpose of the trip, the celebratory signing of Project Ascension, was now tainted. The partnership with a company that harbored such a toxic culture felt untenable. "Actually," Jaden said, his decision made, "I think we will be disembarking as well." Annette's eyes widened in alarm. "Sir? Please." "Our decision is made," Jaden said, standing up. Jordan followed suit. "We will take a later voyage on a different cruise line. Please inform Mr. Thorne that Project Ascension is on hold indefinitely. We need to reassess the cultural compatibility of our two organizations." It was the final devastating blow. They were not just punishing the crew. They were putting the entire multi-billion-dollar deal on ice, with a quiet dignity. They gathered their briefcases. As they walked to the door, every passenger in the suite deck watched them go. Robert Sterling, the man who had started it all, seemed to have shrunk in his stateroom. His face a mottled gray. He had tried to pull rank and had instead witnessed the pulling of a pin from a corporate grenade. As they stepped off the gangway and back into the terminal, Jordan's phone buzzed. It was a news alert from a major financial publication. The headline was stark: Summit Holdings halts planned acquisition of Neptune luxury cruises. Amidst rumors of internal crisis, stock plummets in after-hours trading. The phone call had not just gotten a crew fired. It had just erased billions of dollars from Neptune's market valuation in less than 30 minutes. The karma was not just coming. It was already here, and it was moving at the speed of light. The fallout was not a gentle rain. It was a biblical flood, a deluge of consequence engineered with the cold, brutal efficiency of a man who managed $1 trillion empire. Henry Thorne, incensed by the public humiliation and the near scuttling of his legacy project, did not delegate the response. He orchestrated it personally, turning the full force of his corporate arsenal on the unsuspecting employees of Neptune. His actions were not just punitive. They were a message burned into the consciousness of his entire global enterprise. You do not cross Henry Thorne, and you do not disrespect his partners. The first to be consumed by the firestorm was Heather Vance. She and her entire crew were escorted off the vessel by a grim-faced shore manager, and led not to a debriefing, but to a soulless, windowless human resources conference room in the depths of Terminal 4. The air was stale with the smell of cheap coffee and corporate dread. A senior human resources executive and a sharp-suited lawyer from Summit Holdings' legal team were waiting. There were no pleasantries. The lawyer placed a small digital recorder on the table. "Ma'am," he began, his voice devoid of any warmth, "we have reviewed the incident on the Grand Voyage ship. I would like you to listen to something." He pressed play. Jaden Carter's voice, clear and unnervingly calm, filled the room, narrating the events. Then came Heather's own voice, syrupy with false politeness, followed by her escalating hostility. She heard herself lie about the other staterooms being reserved. She heard herself snap, "Are you going to move or not?" She then heard the captain's arrogant blustering, the ridiculous stability and trim lie, and his ultimate threat of arrest. It was a complete, irrefutable record of their unprofessionalism and prejudice. Heather felt the blood drain from her face. It was one thing to live the moment, caught in a spiral of her own indignation. It was another to hear it played back, stripped bare of emotion, revealing nothing but ugly, discriminatory conduct. As of this moment, the lawyer said, switching off the recording, "Your employment with Neptune Luxury Cruises is terminated for cause." He slid a folder across the table. "Gross misconduct, endangerment of the company's fiduciary health, and violation of passenger civil rights. There will be no severance, no accrued vacation payout, and no pension contributions beyond what is legally mandated. Your health insurance expires at midnight." Heather's world tilted on its axis. 30 years of service, of seniority, of pride in her role, all vaporized. 30 years, she stammered. The union has been briefed, the human resources executive cut in, her tone sharp. "They have been shown the preliminary financial analysis. The stock has already lost over 30% of its value in after-hours trading, representing a loss of nearly $2 billion. That loss is directly attributable to the actions on that recording. They will not be representing you." Desperate, Heather later called her union representative, a man she had known for a decade. His voice was cold, distant. "Heather, I am sorry. We cannot touch this. They are calling a catastrophic dereliction. You did not just create a customer service complaint. You torpedoed a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. You are radioactive, blacklisted. Her name a toxic asset in the maritime industry's shared databases." Heather Vance's career was not just over. It was as if it had never existed. The authority she had wielded with such arrogance on the passenger deck was gone, leaving behind only the terrifying silence of an empty future. For Captain Miller, the reckoning was even more severe in public. As he stepped onto the gangway expecting to be met by a cruise line manager, he was instead greeted by two stern-faced individuals in dark suits, who identified themselves as investigators from the United States Coast Guard, accompanied by Neptune's own chief captain, a man who refused to meet his gaze. The humiliation was profound. He was stripped of his command in front of his peers. The Coast Guard officials formally served him with a notice of proposed certificate action, a document that effectively signaled the death of his career. The complaint filed with blistering speed by Summit's legal team cited not only the abuse of his captain's authority, but more damningly the deliberate falsification of a safety justification, the stability and trim lie, to enforce a non-safety-related crew demand. It was a cardinal sin for a mariner. His license was suspended on the spot. His life's work, the 4 stripes on his shoulder that he wore as a crown, were rendered meaningless. His arrogance had sailed him straight into a regulatory wall, and the fall back to earth was brutal and absolute. The shockwave did not stop there. It radiated outward, seeking the source of the initial spark. Robert Sterling, fuming in his stateroom as a grand voyage ship eventually departed, was oblivious to the digital storm brewing around him. The tech blogger, stowed in stateroom 94012, had typed furiously on his laptop throughout the delay, documenting every word, every sneer. By the time the vessel was in the middle of the Atlantic, his post titled "A Masterclass in Corporate Suicide," How Neptune and the Diamond Elite Cruiser torched a $1 billion deal was viral. It named Robert Sterling, described his entitled demands, and quoted his condescending use of the word son. The story was a perfect storm of corporate arrogance and racial insensitivity. The hashtags #Sterling Service and #Neptune Crash trended globally. Back in New York, the board of Sterling's private equity firm, Sterling Cromwell and Finch, convened an emergency meeting. The firm, which managed massive public pension funds, had recently launched a multi-million-dollar public relations campaign, highlighting its commitment to ESG principles, environmental, social, and governance. Sterling's behavior had made them a laughingstock. He did not just insult to men, a furious senior partner argued. He made our entire firm's ESG platform look like a fraudulent marketing gimmick. "The California teachers' retirement system is on the phone, Robert. They want to know if our governance includes threatening our black partners." The outcome was swift. Robert Sterling was forced into a sudden and unceremonious early retirement. His name was scrubbed from the company masthead by morning. His Diamond Elite Cruiser status was revoked, and he was permanently banned from Neptune and its entire network of partner cruise lines. The pecking order he believed in had devoured him whole. Henry Thorne, however, knew the rot went deeper. His auditors descended on Neptune headquarters like wolves. They found that embarkation staff Brenda had a history of profiling passengers, a pattern ignored by her superiors. They discovered that the vice president of guest experience had actively cultivated a crew is always right culture, dismissing dozens of serious passenger complaints to maintain staff morale. They were all summarily fired. The chief operating officer who presided over this slow decay was given 30 minutes to resign or be terminated. The final piece of the purge was Chief Executive Officer Sarah Jenkins. She finally got Henry Thorne on the phone, her voice a desperate mix of apology and corporate damage control speak. Henry, it was an isolated incident. A few rogue employees. We are launching a full internal investigation. A top-down review of our diversity and inclusion protocols. Thorne let her talk, his silence a growing, terrible weight on the line. When she finally wound down, his voice was like ice. Sarah, stop. I am not interested in your press release. I am watching a company I was about to save burn to the ground on live television. Because your organization is culturally bankrupt. This was not a rogue incident. It was a symptom of the disease you allowed to fester. You failed. I can fix this. Henry, she pleaded. No. He said, the word of final judgment. You cannot. Your resignation. I want it on my desk in 1 hour. The line went dead. From their temporary suite overlooking Central Park, Jordan and Jaden watched the news reports detailing the corporate carnage. It was a staggering, almost terrifying display of power. It is a forest fire, Jordan said quietly, watching the Neptune stock symbol flashing red on the screen. We struck a match, and the whole damn forest went up in flames. Jaden was not looking at the news. He was on his laptop, deep in Neptune's financial filings. He scrolled past the stock price to the company's debt structure, its asset valuations, its cash on hand. He saw a company in a death spiral, its leadership decapitated, its market value annihilated. But he also saw valuable port slots in the Caribbean, a fleet of vessels that could be retrofitted, and a brand that, while shattered, still held a flicker of recognition. He looked up from his screen, a strategic, predatory light in his eyes. Forest fires do more than just destroy, Jay, he said softly. They clear out the deadwood. They enrich the soil. They clear the way for new growth. Jordan looked at his brother, recognizing the look. It was the same one he had had before they launched SABS Dynamics. The look that said he saw a path no one else could. Jaden closed his laptop. The chaos and destruction were just noise. He had found the signal. He picked up his phone and dialed the one man he knew would understand. Henry, Jaden began as Thorne answered. I think it is time we talked about a new deal. Not the one we had before. A much, much better one. The phone call that Jaden Carter made to Henry Thorne was not one of negotiation. It was a declaration. In the wreckage of Neptune's public immolation, where Thorne saw a failed investment and a public relations nightmare to be contained, Jaden saw the opportunity of a lifetime. He saw the scorched earth not as a graveyard, but as a fertile field cleared for new construction. Henry, Jaden began, his voice cutting through the static of the transatlantic call with surgical precision. You wanted to buy Neptune to acquire its logistics network and integrate our artificial intelligence. The problem is you were paying a premium for a toxic culture, a broken brand, and an incompetent leadership team. The asset you truly wanted is still there, the routes, the port slots, the physical vessels, but now they are trapped in a burning building. The market thinks the entire structure is worthless. Thorne was silent, listening. He recognized the tone in Jaden's voice. It was the same laser-focused strategic thinking that had compelled him to invest in SABS Dynamics in the first place. Do not walk away from the fire, Henry, Jaden continued. Let us buy the ashes at a discount, a steep one. Neptune is on its knees. Its leadership is gone. Its stock is cheaper than bunker fuel, and its board is in a state of panic. We can initiate a hostile takeover. Summit provides the capital, and we, my brother and I, will provide the face, the story, and the future. We will form a new entity, SABS Maritime Group, and we will buy a controlling interest. You still get your logistics network, but you get it for pennies on the dollar. And you install a leadership team you know you can trust, one that is fundamentally, philosophically aligned with your own values. It was a breathtakingly audacious pitch. It reframed the narrative from one of damage control to one of predatory opportunity. Thorne, a man who had built his empire on such calculated, ruthless moves, felt a slow smile spread across his face. The Carters were not just seeking revenge. They were seeking ownership. It was the most karmic and potentially the most profitable solution he could imagine. "Draw up the proposal," Thorne said, his voice now energized. "I want to see it by morning." What followed was a blitzkrieg on Wall Street. The Carter bid for Neptune, as the press dubbed it, sent shock waves through the financial world. Financial news networks scrambled to understand. Headlines in the Wall Street Journal read, "Vengeance or Vision? Silicon Valley Wonder Kids launch shock takeover bid for Neptune Cruise Line." Pundits debated the move's viability, but with the limitless war chest of Summit Holdings behind them, the outcome was never in doubt. The remaining Neptune board, leaderless and staring into the abyss of bankruptcy, saw the bid not as an attack, but as their only lifeline. They folded within a week, 3 months after that fateful day at the port of Miami. An all-hands meeting was called at Neptune's largest dry dock. Thousands of employees, captains in crisp uniforms, mechanics in greasy overalls, guest services staff in their now infamous beige attire gathered beneath the hull of a massive cruise vessel. The atmosphere was thick with fear and uncertainty. They had watched their leaders get purged, their company's reputation incinerated, and they were convinced they were next. The dry dock doors rolled open and Henry Thorne strode onto a makeshift stage, flanked by Jordan and Jaden Carter. A wave of murmurs and whispers rippled through the crowd as they recognized the twins. From the viral news stories, they were the men who had brought the temple down. Thorne tapped the microphone and a sharp feedback squeal silenced the dock. "For the last decade," he began, his voice resonating with power, "Neptune Luxury Cruises has been in a slow, steady decline. It forgot its mission. It mistook seniority for leadership and arrogance for authority. Last month, the decay culminated in a moment of profound disrespect that cost this company its independence. But today is not about the past. Today is about the future." He turned and gestured to the twins. "I am not here as your conqueror. I am here as your partner. And I am here to introduce you to the men who will lead you into that future. Your new chairman and co-chief executive officers, Jordan and Jaden Carter." A stunned, tense silence greeted the twins as Jordan stepped up to the podium. He surveyed the thousands of anxious faces, seeing not a workforce to be punished, but one to be redeemed. "I know what many of you are thinking," Jordan said, his voice calm, empathetic yet firm. "You are thinking that the 2 men who were wronged by this cruise line are here for revenge. You are thinking that this is the beginning of a purge. You are wrong." He let that sink in. A few people visibly relaxed. "My brother and I did not spend the last 3 months engineering a corporate takeover to settle a score. We did it because we saw potential buried beneath layers of neglect. The problem was never with the mechanics who keep these vessels safe, or the embarkation staff who handle thousands of passengers a day, or the captains who perform miracles on the sea. The problem was a culture that allowed disrespect to fester. A culture that created a pecking order. Well, the pecking order ends today." His voice grew stronger, filled with passion. "At SAPS Dynamics, we built our success on a simple idea. Every data point matters. And here, every person matters. From this moment on, the guiding principle of this cruise line is that everyone has a sweet deck seat in human dignity. Your ideas will be heard. Your contributions will be valued. And your respect for one another and for our customers will be the metric by which we measure all success." He stepped back, and Jaden took his place, the cool strategist to Jordan's fiery order. "Vision is nothing without a plan," Jaden stated. "Our plan is to transform this cruise line from the inside out. We are dry docking the entire fleet for 1 week for a top to bottom refurbishment. We will be investing $3 billion in technology. Our Pathfinder artificial intelligence will not just optimize fuel consumption. It will predict maintenance needs before they become delays, and reroute passengers from canceled voyages before they even know there is a problem. We are dissolving the old adversarial relationship between management and staff. We are doubling the budget for training, creating the finest hospitality and service academy in the industry, and we are raising the base pay for every single employee by 15%, effective immediately." A wave of audible gasps and applause broke the tension. The fear that had gripped the dry dock was replaced by a surge of electrifying hope. This was not a punishment. This was a revolution. There will be one final change, Jaden concluded. The name Neptune Luxury Cruises is tied to the past. It is tied to a culture we are leaving behind. Today, we are reborn. Welcome to Ascend. Sea behind him, a giant banner unfurled, revealing a sleek, modern logo, a stylized day that looked like a rising ship in a soaring wave. The message was clear. This was a new beginning. 6 months later, Ascend Sea Voyage number 001. The inaugural service from Miami to the Caribbean, hummed with quiet efficiency. The new interior was elegant, with dark blues and silver accents. The crew, representing a vibrant diversity, moved with a newfound energy and purpose. The atmosphere was one of palpable pride. Sitting in staterooms 72,145 and 72,147 were Jordan and Jaden Carter. They were not sipping champagne as passengers. They were observing their creation, their hands on the controls of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. As the powerful engine spooled up and the vessel pulled away from the port, Jordan looked out the window, a small smile on his face. The ship glided gracefully onto the ocean, turning onto its new route. The ascent was smooth, powerful, and flawless. Jaden leaned over to his brother. Stability and trim seem okay now, would you not say? He asked, a glint of humor in his eye. Jordan laughed, a deep, genuine sound of triumph. Perfectly balanced, he replied, looking around the sweet deck at the cruise line he now owned. We just had to buy the whole damn ship to fix it. They had been asked to move, to give up their space, but they had refused to be displaced. Instead, they had taken over the entire system, not to break it, but to rebuild it better, stronger, and more just than it had ever been before. It was the ultimate karma, a lasting legacy written not in the seas, but in the very culture of the company they had ascended to command. The story of the Neptune Luxury Cruises Grand Voyage ship is a stark reminder that the person you underestimate today could be your boss tomorrow. It is a testament to the power of standing your ground with intelligence and integrity. Jordan and Jaden Carter did not just demand respect, they commanded it. And in doing so, they engineered the most incredible corporate takeover born from a single moment of injustice. Their story proves that the ultimate karma is not just about seeing wrongdoers get punished. It is about taking the power they abused and using it to build something better, something worthy. If you believe that karma is real and that integrity should always have the last word, hit that like button. Share the story with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because we have more incredible true stories coming where the overlooked, the underestimated, and the disrespected get the ultimate satisfying final say. What story should we tell next?